Hello, everybody. As you all start to come in, thank you for joining today. Yeah, I really appreciate the opportunity to talk to everyone, and we'll give folks a few minutes to trickle in here. I have some questions that have been sent already, but we're going to have some opportunity if there are questions to add from the chat. So please feel free to add in the chat. You know, I have, if I look down, it's because I have some notes on things that I'd like to cover, I think are interesting, that obviously came from questions, but also, yeah, topics of the day that I think would be interesting to comment on. So just give one more minute as people are coming in from the waiting room, and we'll kick off. All right. Okay. So welcome everyone today to our first we're going to quarterly kind of national security Q&A, national security conversation. I'm Andrew Kirsch. For those who don't know, I spent a decade of my career as an intelligence officer with the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, Canada's domestic spy service. I was based out of Ottawa as an analyst, and then Toronto as a field investigator, and in our special operations team, which is the warranted legal technical surveillance of targeted individuals. I wrote a book about my experience. I Was Never Here. It's available on Amazon, wherever you buy your books. And if anyone's interested and you would like, I have sample chapters that we make available on the website, which includes recruitment. So those interested in a career in CSIS, I joined in 2005, 2006. I talk about my recruitment, the steps I took. If those are interested in learning more about that and don't want to buy the book, I'm happy to provide free sample chapters. So today, you know, I'd like to talk about, I get a lot of requests and people reach out asking about my career, talking about how to get into CSIS, asking questions about national security, and I wanted to have a forum where I can answer all those questions. And, you know, I think that other people might benefit from hearing the questions that I got asked by others that might be relevant to them. So a quick disclaimer, I can't help you get into CSIS. I don't work there anymore. I am not and was not a member of the Human Resources Department. You know, they probably wouldn't even like it if I did make recommendations to them, as I wrote a book, which they're, and that's a whole other story. But what I can do is provide some advice, talk about my experience, and provide some advice and guidance about whether it's a career you may be interested in, because there's not a lot of information about what it means to actually be an intelligence officer or to work at CSIS. So, you know, is that something you might want to get into? And also, how to be good at it. You know, things I learned from my early career to the end of the career about how to be good at being an intelligence officer, if that's a career that you want to be in, things that I learned along the way, and how I use that now. And some people, you know, what skills and experience that I got from my spy career, and how do I use that in my everyday life? And so that's what I want to cover quickly. And then as far as topics that were submitted on kind of national security issues of the day, whether Canada needs a foreign intelligence service, that's something that we think is appropriate or needed or overdue. The two Michaels, and you know, how the two Michaels were in the news, to speak a little about that. The recent finding that the Emergencies Act was found to be illegal, and what implications that has, and kind of the role that CSIS played in the government declaring the Emergencies Act. And finally, if we have enough time, and I hope we do, the public inquiry. You know, there's a very quiet public inquiry going on into foreign interference, which yeah, is happening, but you might not have heard much about it because people don't seem to be as involved as they used to be. So before that, once again, kind of experience in my career, what I learned, and you know, what I think you need to know if you're thinking about applying. Number one, and I'll tell some fun stories that are not in the book along the way. So the first thing I want to pass along to those who are interested in career national security, or kind of, I would say more generally, the things I learned. Knowledge is power. It's an expression that's well known, but how that relates to CSIS, there are no surprises when applying. You need to know the CSIS Act. I've done videos on my YouTube channel about this, right? You need to know about the organization, know the mandate, know what you're getting into. When you are sitting down, and it may have changed 15 years ago, when I sat down in my first interview at CSIS, being interviewed by an HR department, they said, what are the 4 threats that CSIS is mandated to investigate and advise government? Like, this is headline stuff. This is Section 2, of the CSIS Act. This is things that everybody needs to know. This was not a hidden, obscure sub, appendix of the CSIS Act, right? It is, you want to get in, you got to know the act. If you want to get in, they're going to ask you about it. You're going to use it through your whole career. So for those who think of applying, and then when you're a spy, I tell a funny story. We're out knocking on doors, right? When you're an intelligence officer, 2 roles. There's your analyst who's in the office investigating, who's overseeing the national security investigation, who is reading information that's being shared by partners, being collected in the field, that open source, and they're overseeing the investigation. Then you have field investigators. These are the 2 roles of an intelligence officer at CSIS. And the field investigator is the collector. They are the person who is out knocking on doors, talking to people to ask them to give information on threats to the security of Canada. And I was talking about my investigation career. When I was going to knock on doors to ask people for help, I tried to do as much research as I could on that person. You often have 30 seconds on somebody's doorstep when they open the door, just a crack to tell you, for you to explain who you are, what you need, and ask them for help. So you want to know, first of all, who's on the other side of that door that you're talking to. Are they somebody who has information that's of value to you? Is there a way to build rapport, to get engagement, to ingratiate yourself with that person? And of course, are they going to turn around and tell maybe the person you're investigating if that CSIS was there knocking on their door, and by the way, they're asking about you? We were doing so much research in advance of knocking on that door, of that person, of what they were doing, to try to give ourselves the best chance of success, and to find a way. One, if that's the right person to talk to, they have the information that we need, and if they're going to work with us. If you think about today, back then it was like a Google search. We do like a Google search, and we hope that there was this person maybe made the news, or that there was something that we found out that they maybe at one time was like had a kid in a police foundations course. And I was like, okay, this is great. They're more likely to help us. Nowadays, you can go on LinkedIn. You can see everybody somebody has worked with their entire professional career. You can see on Facebook, if they've opened Facebook, you can see, if they're liking the photos of their neighbors or not. You can go on Twitter and see, everything about this person's perspective on the world, every thought they've ever had. You can build pretty comprehensive profiles of individuals. When I talk about cybersecurity, I talk how the bad actors use that against us. In this case, I want to say that, this is what we did to try to see who we were talking to and how they could help us. And this is not be just reserved for, doesn't have to be just reserved for, spying. This is something in your careers every day. I encourage you to do. The more you know, the more you can kind of game plan who you're talking to and what you need out of them. And I'll tell a funny story. This obviously we try to do our best. Doesn't always work. I remember one time I was out looking for somebody who we had information from the Americans that that this guy was involved. It was like he was involved, had knowledge of, was involved in Al Qaeda. Was essentially didn't have much to say what involved in Al Qaeda meant. Was he a supporter? Was it buddies, what did that mean? So we had to go find out this information. Okay, is this person a threat? Are they a part of a planning group? Like what is involved in Al-Qaeda mean? So I did a bunch of research on this person, and I found their his ex-wife. So this is great, right? This is person who will likely have a good knowledge of this Al-Qaeda person's activities, contacts, feelings about Al-Qaeda. And number two, they're probably willing to talk to me, being the ex-wife, that they were willing to share that with me. So that's like, this is a great person to go and collect this information to then provide information back to the analysts to provide a clearer picture. So I go, I knock on this door, and I say, hello, my name is Andrew. I'm here from the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, otherwise known as CSIS. I have a badge, and it has CSIS on it. And I say, I'm here from CSIS, and I was hoping you could help me with my national security investigation. Can I have a few minutes of your time? And this person says, of course, yes, please, come on in. And so it's great. She made a pot of tea, and she sat down, and I sat down, and her ex-husband sat down, and I thought, oh my, what am I going to talk about for the next, hour of asking these questions? And she couldn't have given me a Facebook status update, so we try, and it works. It doesn't always work, but knowing where you're going, knowing what you're walking into, wherever you're doing, so important. And it kind of leads me to my next point, when we talk about, what skills you need to develop to be an intelligence officer and how I use those in my professional career. Number one job of an intelligence officer is recruiting. You are there to recruit. You are there to go and meet people and work with them and ask them to help get you information. That is job number one. And let me tell you something. That should be that's job number one when I left. Right, we are recruiting people who are there to help, to give us information, to help you in your career, to network, to support you. Always be recruiting. I'm through and through a recruiter. Now it's not just number of sources. It's just that is your job, and if that's something that's uncomfortable for you, then as I said, that's the bulk of being an intelligence officer and a collector. And I tell you, in your career, and and where that plays out a little bit. I was talking to an ex-colleague of mine, and we were talking about foreign interference. Just want to talk about it a bit, and how they said the government wasn't reading their emails. Right? There's this big thing that the CSIS is collecting all of this information, and they are reporting. The CSIS mandate is to collect, analyze, and advise government on threats to the security of Canada. And there are 4 threats: espionage and sabotage, foreign influence activities, terrorism, and subversion. Those are the 4 threats. Collect, analyze, and advise government. What was happening, or what was the allegations, was CSIS was advising government, and the government was not acting on that information to a level that some people thought was appropriate. Okay, and not to get too far into it, although I'm happy to talk further about it. And my ex-colleague said to me, and I can't name him because he's still at CSIS. He says, Andrew, we didn't recruit the politicians. We didn't recruit the people the decision makers. We gave them information, but we didn't recruit them to our cause. We weren't able to win them over, build rapport, have them, take it seriously, or whatever that, whatever they needed to do. And he looked at it like we failed at the number one job that we were supposed to be good at, which is recruiting. And I was like, that's a great point, and I tell you, people reach out to me and they want some advice, and many of you are here on the call, and it's great to speak to you. You are recruiting me for help, and you'll be recruiting other people in your professional lives. And you think about that, that is job as an IO, and will help you the rest of your life, recruiting people to your cause, recruiting people to help. Here in the recruiting, and like my last, I would say, thing I want to cover, and I'll get to questions as far as things I learned in my spy career, things that you need to be ready for if you are pursuing a career in national security. People will help in amazing ways. So the one thing I learned is that people, I was going to folks and I was saying, hi, I'm Andrew. I'm intelligence officer from CISA. Can you please give me some information on your neighbor, coworker, cousin? Hey, I need a key to this sensitive area. Can you please give it to me? We were asking for assistance, ask people for sensitive and privileged information. People would give it, right? But you have to ask. You have to have the confidence to ask, and people will do things, and we say, well, yeah, like of course, but no. There is a. I remember, I'll tell a story, like 2 stories, quick stories. One's in the book, one's not. And I went to. We needed to use someone's home, and I can't even tell it now why, and they were totally nice people, but their home was in a location that was important to us, and we needed to do something in that home, and they could not be there when we were doing it because we were using sensitive equipment and all this they didn't know. They couldn't know what we were doing. And I was new in our special operations branch. It's my job it was my job as a security officer to secure the home, and this we had no other home. This was the home. And I asked my boss at the time, and I said, well, what do I tell them that we're doing? He says, you can't tell them what we're doing. And I said, well, how would I tell them why? And you can't tell them why. So I had to go to this house and talk to this very nice couple. And we'd done some research. We knew that they were not a problem, and they hopefully nothing to indicate they wouldn't be supportive. But it's a big ask. Hello, my name's Andrew, and I'm here from CSIS, and I need your house. I need you to give me the keys to your home. I need you to leave for the day. And I don't, I can't pay you any money. Maybe I can give you a voucher for a movie and some dinner. I need you to leave. I can't tell you what I'm doing here. I can't tell you why I need it. You're not in any trouble. There's no problem. But you're going to have to call me before you come home to make sure that everything's okay, and then I can let you back into your house. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And you ask this ridiculous favor of people. And there are ways that you can validate, who we are, and the person is helping CSIS, but you have to ask. And you have to be comfortable asking, and you have to be confident in asking. And a lot of the job is asking for sensitive things, asking for inconveniencing people. And as a pleaser myself, that's very hard, but that's a big part of it. And in life, people will help you. That's one thing I learned from the job that I've taken to my professional career. People will help. People will do things for you, but you have to ask. Nobody is coming. And I'll tell another quick story. It's not in the book. We went. We were when we would do a job on a car, let's say, on a vehicle. We're going to search a car. We're going to plant something in a car. The techs, the actual guys who would do the real work. I was a security team. The techs would want to practice. They didn't want to walk into a car in the middle of the night without knowing what was there, without knowing where things were, without having some sort of an idea of what they're dealing with. So they would want a practice vehicle. They would want something to work on, and my job was to get one for them. And once again, no money, just trying to go out there and find them a vehicle. So I would go out and I try to, beg, borrow, and steal. Like there was one time where I was going to ask my brother for his car. It got very close, where the make and model were similar, but didn't quite work out. Like whatever we could do, not being able to say what it was, what we're using it for, what we're going to do with it, why we needed it, and all those kind of things. So it's one case I found a car for sale at a dealership. This is great, it's for sale, and it's from a car dealer. So I went to the car dealer, And I said, hi, my name's Andrew. I need this car that you have. I need it for a week. I can't tell you why I need it. I can't tell you what I'm going to do with it. I'm not going to leave you any paperwork. I'm not going to give you any money, but I really need it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate your help. And, he's skeptical, and we had to kind of build some rapport and negotiate on the days that it was available. And the guy said to me, he said, Andrew, I'm going to help you, and I'm going to give you this car. But I just want you to know that if this is a scam, if you just steal this car, I'm going to be so mad, because I'm going to have to go and tell a police officer I just handed this random guy my keys and he just drove it off the lot. And I'm going to feel so dumb if that happens. I just want you to know that I'm going to give you my keys, but I just want you to know how bad and how dumb I'm going to feel if this is a scam. And I said, it's not a scam. I'll bring it back. I promise. And we drove it off. And I remember thinking, man, the people. So, just to get back to those who are starting their career, what they're going to get into, and those who want to know how I use my spy career in my regular life post spy career. Most people want to help. Most people deep down want to be helpful. And what you need to do is to give them the permission to do it, right? That you exist, that not exist, but what your job there is to ask for help and explain, give them the permission to help you. And that is, am I allowed to do this? You're allowed to do this. Is it legal what I'm doing? You're 100% legal. Can I see some paperwork that makes it legal? Sure, we can show some things. So if people want to help, you got to be comfortable asking, and then you want to give them permission to help you. So that is on kind of the initial tips. I see some people, and once again, any questions, feel free to put questions in the chat, and I will get to them. And I'm going to answer some questions now that have been pre-submitted. So the first question that we got was, does Canada need a foreign intelligence service? Canada right now, we only have a domestic. We have a domestic intelligence service, right? Most countries who share similar model, like the British have MI6 and MI5, James Bond operating abroad, Johnny English operating MI5 domestically. The Australians have ASIO and ASIS, and the Israelis have the Mossad and Shin Bet. We only have a domestic security service with legals will get on me. Will just allow you to do some things abroad, but only as it relates to the threats to security of Canada. So do we need a foreign service? Do we need MI6 with our MI5? I don't think so, or at least not yet. Like, I would like someone to explain to me what they think we are, what information gaps do we think we are missing? Sometimes we think about spying as like supply side. Oh, if we have a foreign intel service, they will get us good information. I'd rather think about demand, right? What intel are we not getting that we want? What gaps do we have that are not being fulfilled? And I don't know if we have a good answer for that question, because if you think of a foreign intelligence service, you were thinking of governments who are spying on other governments to try to get information on trade negotiations, or foreign companies who are doing things that are otherwise kind of borderline illegal, in some cases illegal. So do we have the stomach for that? Would we use it? And what exactly are we missing that we're not getting now? I think that is a question that I haven't heard myself a good articulation of. Where's the demand that we are not satisfying as an intelligence service? Because we can investigate threats as they relate to Canada. We're just not human on a human side offensive. On the cyber side, we're offensive through a CSC, our signals intelligence group. We don't have a foreign human service. So for all those things, does Canada need a foreign intelligence service? I would say, to do what? I mean, really, to run around in foreign countries and collect intelligence. Okay, but on what? And what do we need that we're not getting now? So on that note, the Michaels and the two Michaels, we had the two Michaels who were detained by the PRC in China, who were recently released and now I believe are suing the government. and they allege that their participation in a GAC, our Foreign Affairs program, that was a specialized division of intelligence collection, security intelligence. Maybe they were targeted because of that program. And once again, Canada doesn't have a foreign intelligence service. We have diplomats who are out, who had a mandate to gather security information, overt as diplomats, but the information they were collecting was sensitive. So the individuals who are out collecting, were doing as diplomats, have not received the training, do not have the regulatory framework, the mandate that CSIS has. And the argument for that program is that these are diplomats and they are not covert, and therefore they should be provided diplomatic immunity or protections. And they're operating and just doing an expanded role of a diplomat. And foreign governments see people going out and collecting intelligence information and saying those are spies. And I don't think they often care about our own internal, no, they're not under the CSIS Act, they're under GAC. And actually, we do it overtly and therefore they're not spies, they're whatever. It is gray, and that program could use a rethink and a review. And I don't want to presuppose anything that's going on in the lawsuit, but I'd say that's where we are getting into a bit of a gray area with, does Canada need a foreign intelligence service? Was GAC doing some roles of what a foreign intelligence service would do? Is that the appropriate person to do it? Should that be codified and mandated under a foreign intelligence service? Yeah, when you don't have one and other people are collecting, that creates potential problems. And then the other questions here are submitted. So why did a younger Andrew make a good spy? If you were to profile yourself, what did you bring to the table at the time, and how did you articulate your why? This is a great question, and it is a question I get asked. Someone says, here's my CV, can you look at it, or what are they looking for? Well, let me tell you something. This is what they're looking for, okay? And this is how I sold myself back many years ago. They need people who can analyze, read large volumes of information, synthesize it, understand what is information analysis, and write comprehensive reports and memos that articulate the information that's collected. And that's the analysis side of it. So do you have whatever that background in analysis that say, hey, I'm able to read reports, I'm able to understand the salient points, I'm able to articulate that in a concise and accurate way, either through your degree, whatever degree that is, or your career experience, whatever you're doing on the analysis side. And for me, it was, I had a public policy degree, and I read lots of, I had to read lots of information, and I had to write reports, and that's how I demonstrated that skill that they were looking for. Think about it in terms of what skills are they looking for. I was able to look at current events and articulate them in a very specific, focused way. And on field investigations, which is the kind of social butterfly, are you able to go out and recruit? Are you able to go and build rapport and get people to come and work with you, and to, in some cases, give you secrets on threats to Security Canada? And so when I graduated from university, I went to university in the US. I'm from Toronto. I went to university in the US. I graduated from university in the US. I moved to London, England. I didn't know anybody, and I was working for a bank. And what I told them was, hey, I've moved twice recently to places where I did not know anybody. And I had to go make friends. Very simple. I had to go make friends. I had to go meet new people. I moved to London. I didn't know anybody. I got a job, and I had to build a network and a community for myself that was outside of a natural community. And I said, these are the types of things, the skills that they're looking for, and the experience that I had that I demonstrated. That said, I can do this. I can go make a new friend in a strange country. I can, be a part of a team, and I can recruit people, to be my new friend for all intents and purposes. So, align your experience with the skills that they are looking for, whatever you have, and that's how you demonstrate it, right? It is, in whatever you can do. So they're looking for people who can go into diverse communities, who have experience and comfort working with diverse groups that are probably outside of your own. And can you build relationships of trust? Can you build a network? Can you build a community? And that is harder for younger people to demonstrate just by maybe age and lack of exposure. But that's what made younger Andrew a good spy, is that I had that experience to be thrown in the deep end and say, go make a new friend. Like go to meet someone at work and get them to hang out with you after work for a beer, right? Like, yes, it's just kind of silly, but it's true. That's what you're doing. Another question here. I'll go to another question here from how can CSIS ensure the safety of officers with open source intelligence gathering on social media? This is a great question, and it's changed a lot since I was there. So as an intelligence officer, we are looking and gathering information on the people that we are looking to speak to, looking to investigate, looking to make our human sources. At the same time, as regular people who are going about their day and their life, we are putting information about ourselves online. I am thankful that I worked there 15 years ago, and well, sorry, from 15 to 5 years ago, and the explosion of social media. I don't think Instagram, I don't know if Instagram was around. Certainly Facebook was, but to also maintain your own social profile. Look, it's stranger if you have no social profile, right? If you're like off the grid completely, and your friends say, hey, like share photos of your kids, and where are you? Oh, I'm nowhere. That's also a little weird. So they need to provide advice. The CSIS needs to provide advice on kind of profile management for the intelligence officers about what is their profile online, what does that say about them, even on their device and trackability. You go into a secure facility. If anyone's here has ever been to a secure facility, and I know many people have, you go and you lock up your phone, in a closet or whatever, cabinet at the building, because you're not allowed to take sensitive devices inside secure facilities. Well, that's great. Hell, someone seeing my phone that goes all the way to the secure facility and sits there for 8 hours. If people are interested in investigating me, that also would say something about me. So how are we managing our online exposure? How are we managing our profile, and what information that people can collect about us is a challenge, is a serious, significant challenge. Now, we benefit because most intelligence officers operate domestically, so that we are able to provide some additional resources and advice to the intelligence officers about where they are vulnerable, and resources that they can use to have less of an online digital profile. But that is an ongoing challenge, right? That their constant communication, because you better believe the IOs want to make sure that we're doing things right, and are also real people. We want to be, and I'm not there now, I'm talking about we, but IOs want to be accessible to their loved ones if they're moving around and working all day. And when I was there, I had a wife and a young son and a baby. And if I would have said, hey, honey, I'm leaving my phone at home and I'm going to be gone and I'll see you in 10 hours and there's nobody to get in touch with me. Well, my wife, probably wouldn't have been that keen on it with a baby at home, nor would I have wanted that. So balancing accessibility, balancing the need to be connected, the need to have some sort of profile with the vulnerabilities that profile gives is kind of everybody's security challenge, I can tell you, on the cybersecurity front, and a very unique challenge for CSIS intelligence officers who may be targeted by foreign services. So, my advice on social media, my advice in general is to everybody, first of all, don't put anything in an email or post on social media, even in a private setting, even in a direct message. Don't put anything online that you wouldn't write on a postcard and mail, manually mail in a postcard to your mother, grandmother, neighbor, friend, whoever. What you put out online is there and exists, and you no longer, once it's gone, you do not have positive control of that information, right? You've lost control of whatever that is. and it can be a private, and it can be a signal message, and it can be whatever that is, and there are lots of encryption things around it. But ultimately, once you lose positive control of that piece of information, there is a risk that it could be vulnerable to intercept, compromise, and whatever. So, being very sensitive about what you write, how you communicate, what you put online is kind of job number one. I'd say for intelligence officers for sure, but also for everybody. Also for everybody. So, thanks for that question. Happy to answer any others that come in. The other thing I was going to talk about that came before is the Emergencies Act findings. This was a question that was submitted. If you remember, the Emergencies Act, the trucker convoy, the trucker occupation of Ottawa, and the government of Canada, they invoked the Emergencies Act, which was special powers to use against the convoy and the occupants and the convoy. And I want to bring this up because it relates to CSIS very, very much. And I commented on it at the time. The threshold for and I'm not a lawyer, but as I understand, the threshold for invoking the Emergencies Act was that the threat had to have been deemed a threat further to the CSIS's mandate, CSIS's definitions, right? The threats to the security of Canada. And there are 4 threats, as I said before, and they have to have met the threshold as this is seen to be a threat under the mandate of CSIS, and that cannot be then, handled any other way, and therefore Emergencies Act. Why is that important? Well, CSIS gets to comment on the threats to security of Canada. And we did this all the time. We were evaluating as investigators, as analysts, as members of CSIS, what is the threat? Does it meet our threshold? And therefore, should we investigate it? How should we investigate it? Right. And I found it very interesting that they asked CSIS, they said, does what is happening in Ottawa meet the threat? And the director said no. The director said it did not at the time, even at the time said, we have done an analysis internally at CSIS, and we have found that this threat does not meet the threshold under terrorism or interference, espionage, sabotage, does not meet the threshold under the CSIS Act, right? And then they invoked it. So, and the argument made at the time was CSIS Act threat is limited, that it is old, that it hasn't been refreshed. And they said at the time that we have expanded the definition from national security to include issues of economic security, supply chains, security, our relationships with our allies and partners, our blockades at the border. And that's why, this was, even though it did not meet the threshold of national security under the CSIS Act, it was deemed an emergency because, supply chain disruptions, our American neighbors were not happy, and it was affecting the impact on our economy. And so it was found recently to be illegal. And again, I'm not a lawyer, I'm not going to comment on that, but it speaks to maybe a review, and I think the review is going to happen, of the CSIS Act. What is our threats to national security? Should it be broader than what it is now? Are things like economic security, do those need to be incorporated into our definitions? And I found that this review of an act that was from 1984, broadly, we might see this review, and this is why, and I think this is probably why it's needed. I mean, I'm fine with them having a conversation about it, about what the CSIS Act did. So, to everybody who's applying, I'm going to tell you that they ask you your first question is going to be on the CSIS Act, and what is the CSIS Act, and what is that, and you need to know it. So in this case, did the government know it? Did they try to expand it? Did they misinterpret it? Well, intelligence officers aren't allowed to misinterpret it. I'll say that. I see a question's popped up. How can we best instill a sense of trust, confidence, and respect among Canadian citizens for the important role that CSIS and the broader Canadian intelligence community plays in protecting Canadians from emerging threats? This is a great question. One of the reasons I do these things, people don't have no idea what CSIS is. I knocked on doors for years, and every time I introduced myself, I said, "Andrew, CSIS." People said, "What? What's that? Are you the CIA? Are you police? You must be police. Am I in trouble?" It was like the same five responses. People don't know what CSIS is. They don't know what CSIS does. They don't appreciate the threats that CSIS is protecting against. So I think, I have many ex-colleagues, and I think the organization would say spies should be neither seen nor heard, operate in the shadows, collect information no one knows about, and we provide this in a very secret way to the decision makers. But we are a domestic intelligence service that is relying on the support and trust and confidence of Canadians to provide us with threat-related information, and then to support our government, who we hope will act on it. So we need people to know what CSIS is. We need people to have an appreciation for the threats that we face. We need to sensitize people to the fact that we have an intelligence service that contributes to our security, that the whatever safety, security that we enjoy in Canada, and we are safe in Canada, broadly speaking, but that's not an accident and not guaranteed to continue. And one of the reasons we have it is because we have CSIS out knocking on doors trying to protect us. There's an arrest recently in Ottawa for an individual who alleged to be radicalized and was going to carry out an attack on the Jewish community. I believe it was the Jewish community, in relation to what's happening in the Middle East. And, I imagine, I have no inside knowledge, that initial information probably came from CSIS. That's something that they would kind of be alerted to. And now we see an arrest. And that might have, and I have no inside information, but maybe someone said, "Hey, I got a buddy over here who's saying some things that I'm not comfortable with." They need to know who to speak to about it. And they, CSIS needs to go and say, "Hey, maybe they knocked on a door, hypothetically here. Maybe CSIS found out someone was saying some stuff, knocked on a door of a colleague of this person and said, 'We think your buddy, might be causing some problems, and can you help us?'" And that person, we need that person to say yes. And that comes from trust and confidence and respect. So to get your point, how can we best instill that? Well, we need to be more present. We need to explain the threats and risks. We need to explain the role that CSIS plays in this kind of national security community. And we need to also explain the public's role in supporting CSIS and other national security bodies to keep each other safe. That you may have someone knock on your door and ask you for help, and not only is it okay for you to help them, but we need you to help them. That you are doing your part if you help that person. And ideally, my dream is that, and this happens occasionally, but not that we rate or rely on our very small intelligence service to go knock on a door, but someone in the community is alert to the challenge, alert to the threat, and knows enough and trusts the government enough to call in and say, "I've seen something that I'm concerned about," right? That there's initiative and trust there. That person will say, "I don't like what I'm seeing. I know this guy named Andrew, and I'm going to give him a call and tell him about it, because this is something we all need to worry about." And it happens. It happens a little bit, but I'd love it to happen more. So that may be a long answer to that question. I think it's an important question. One of the reasons I do these talks, one of the reasons I wrote a book, right, is to try to explain to people that we exist, and this is what CSIS does. So we were talking about Emergencies Act and the findings and doing it. The other question I got was about the public inquiry. Foreign interference. Foreign interference is, it's like, in the original mandate, 1984, this is not new. the CSIS is mandated to collect information on foreign interference, which is broadly covert activity on behalf of foreign governments to to meddle here in Canada with diaspora communities, with our democratic process. We used to think about this foreign interference like people handing over envelopes of cash to politicians, bribing politicians. I mean, that may be the movie idea. But now we see things like state-sponsored misinformation campaigns online on Facebook during elections. You better believe that's state-sponsored, trying to influence a vote. That is foreign interference and a serious challenge to address. It is hard to find out if somebody voted for somebody for a reason or to be bribed. It is really hard to find out why someone didn't vote. And if their vote was suppressed because they were bombarded with information to say, don't vote for that party that you normally vote for because they're bad, right? If you think about election interference, it's not just getting people to show up to vote, it's also to suppress the opponent's vote. So there are allegations of foreign interference in previous elections, and that the government, questions about whether the response was appropriate. And we are now having a public inquiry, although I haven't seen much about it, to address this. Here's the thing about the public inquiry. This should be a non-partisan issue. We should have taken a Team Canada approach, because every level of government, every political party is susceptible to foreign interference. It is not a one side or the other side. It is something that everyone can be targeted. Everyone has been targeted. Every level of government, municipal, provincial, federal, right? And my naive hope was, when this all broke, that we could have said, hey, you know what? This is a big issue. We were all vulnerable. Let's put our heads together and figure out if the current policies and systems that we have in place are adequate to address this threat. Does CSIS have the tools they need? Is the government receiving the information and acting appropriately? If there's a conflict of interest because the government of the day is receiving information that possibly relates to them being allegedly beneficiaries of foreign interference, do we have a mechanism by which we can make decisions that maintains respect for our democracy? Because that should be job number one. I hope that we can accomplish this. I hope they take a serious look at it. It is a very, very, very real threat. It is a threat that has been around since the beginning of CSIS, a threat that my colleagues have been investigating, popped up in the news again. CSIS was knocking on doors during a by-election. So I'm watching with a keen eye. Unfortunately, because it has been less political, many people aren't. But keep an eye out. Hopefully there's some revelations. Hopefully there's some action that comes from this. But just know that this isn't like, hey, there's nothing there. Like, there's lots there. There's a lot there, and it'll be interesting to see if they get to the bottom of it. I see a question here from a student about languages. Why are they important at the service? I mean, why are they important? They are 100% important to the service. You, first of all, to be an intelligence officer, you need to be able to speak English and French. I took 9 months of French language training, and to be able to work in the federal government, to be able to work in both official languages. That's a non-starter or non-stopper. So if you don't speak French, you don't speak English, you will have to go and learn it. And I can tell you that if you do know it, it'll be a huge advantage to be able to go in your application. If you can speak English and French well, and you don't put that in the top 1 or 2 sentences of your application, you're doing it wrong. I want to be an intelligence officer. I speak both official languages. Get that up there. Get that very early on your application so everyone can see it. And if you speak another language, get that up there too. And it shouldn't be hard for anybody reviewing your application to find the languages you speak, because you are going to highlight those. Because we are going out into communities, and we have so many communities in Canada. I mean, I wouldn't even attempt to list them all. Canada is a home to many large diaspora communities that have come here for a variety of reasons to enjoy the peace and security that we offer. And we need intelligence officers, and CSIS needs employees who can go out and engage with these communities. And not all of them speak great English, and certainly many of them are more comfortable discussing with people who speak their language. So as an intelligence officer, I need to be able to go out and build rapport with people who are in diverse communities than myself. I mean, it was very rare that I, that just by the nature of my community, that I was always working in communities that I was not from. And your skill is that you should be able to do that, right? Now, if you don't speak the language, then that is impossible. So at that point, you're going to have to bring out somebody who does with you. In an interview where, you know, I've done these before, where I'm the intelligence officer, I have an interpreter, CSIS kind of linguist, someone with language skills beside me, talking to the person, you know, me saying, can you ask about this? They talk, comes back to me. Okay, well, how about this back? Those are very, very bad interviews. Sometimes I just kind of give the person, I grab another IO, I say, hey, can you come with me and do this interview for me? And I'll sit there with you. And if there's anything that comes up, because I'm the expert in the file, you know, I'll be there to answer questions from you, but they'll conduct the interview. I'll just sit there trying to look, you know, alert and with it. But just, you know, so if you have language skills, if you're able to go and assist in the communities, that is a huge asset, and you will be utilized. And I'll tell you something else. If you have language skills that maybe aren't reflective of your background, even better, because then you can sit in meetings and no one suspects you speak. You know, if I spoke Russian, maybe I spoke Chinese, and I was in a meeting and people didn't assume I spoke Chinese or Mandarin, Cantonese. You know, maybe they'd say something in my presence, and how lucky would I be? You know, if I spoke Arabic, people didn't assume I did. You can also be sneaky about it. So yeah, languages are hugely important. You have them, highlight them. They're looking for them. Often they're looking for straight up interpreters, straight up people who will be translators and communications analysts, I believe is the name for it. But also if you want to do it in terms of enhancing your career as an intelligence officer, you need it. And if you want to be a senior manager, if you want to be a leader at CSIS, you got to speak French and English. You can hide out low levels with basic French, but you know, one of the reasons I left is because my French deteriorated, and I wasn't so excited about going back to French language school. So yeah, any other other questions from folks? I'm happy to provide you their guides on general questions that I get. I want to have an opportunity to answer any that are here. Yeah, so that was kind of what I prepared and left some time. I get a lot of folks who are reaching out to me. I'll tell you the other question I get that I get a lot, and this is kind of advice too. And I see some of their names here as you go out into your careers. People say, I want to be a spy. I want to work for CSIS. I want to be a spy, without really knowing what that is and what spies do. And there's only so much you can know, right? I get that. That was one of the reasons I wrote a book. And I certainly had no idea what I was getting myself into when I signed up. There was, at that time, 9/11 had happened a few years before, 2005, bombs go off. And I'm like, you know what? I'm working in finance. I don't want to work in finance anymore. I want to go fight terrorism. And so I hear people come to me and they say, I want to work in national security. I don't know where. I want to be a spy. I don't really know what that means. So I say to everybody, and this kind of goes without saying, or it applies to everything. I was working in finance. It's 2005. The bombs got off. I was very affected by it. Age of terrorism. And I found on my lunch break, when I wasn't doing spreadsheets and client statements, I was reading the news about Canadian troop movements in Afghanistan. And I was, researching WMD in Iraq and the history of Al-Qaeda and national security issues of the day. I that became kind of a passion of mine. And I knew it was time to leave CSIS when I was at my desk, CSIS, and I was, the information that I had that was coming to me was the secrets of national security, of files, and things were happening in Toronto. And on my lunch break, I was going and reading about government, the latest scandal of government and spending scandals and budgetary things, and very fixated on what was happening in my provincial government. I ran for office in 2018, but my eyes shifted, and that's going to happen to you over your career. So if you can align, first of all, if you can align your interests, what you look at lunchtime when you're not being paid, when you're on your break, to what you're supposed to do in your career, you're gonna have a great career, right? That if that is your passion, if in your spare time, you're in full time, you're doing what you enjoy in your spare time, then that's probably where you want to be. And the other thing I say is, how do you want to spend your day, right? So if you are at CSIS, 2 roles of intelligence officer, there's an analyst, and they're behind the desk, and it was 8:30 to 4:30 government time. Friday morning we went for coffee, and it was rarely a surprise when things came up. I had my inbox, people sent me messages, I did the messages, and I was done at 4:30, and the next day I came back and continued with my reports. But I was behind a computer, safe and snug. And I was a field investigator, and I was out knocking on doors. And I made my own schedule. People wanted to meet after hours. So I'm having coffee at 7 p.m. I'm showing up to the office at 10. I'm not charging overtime. I'm kind of balancing my schedule. Driving around. The expectation was, if you were in the office, you were doing it wrong. Get out of the office. Go do interviews. Talk to people. And then I did special operations, and I was like 11 p.m. to 4 in the morning and planting bugs and being in the middle of the night, right? And that what people would consider the cool stuff, the fun stuff, and it was. But then I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be out at 11 p.m. to 4 a.m. I got a kid. I'm tired all the time, stressed out. How do you want to spend your day, right? So then I was like, I want a more regular job, and I could have done that at CSIS for sure. So when you're thinking about where you're going to have some fulfillment, what are you looking at? Does that align with the mandate of your organization? CSIS is espionage, sabotage, foreign influence activities, terrorism, subversion. If you're big into money laundering, it's not them. You want to do fraud? Not CSIS. Care about the borders, immigration, CBSA, right? What is the organization? What are you interested in? Does it align with the mandate and what you were doing at the organization? How do you want to spend your day? You want to be out knocking on doors, stressful, fun, late at night? You want to be feeling a little safer, more secure in an office? Both jobs have their pluses and minuses, and I've done both. So, have a think about how to think about that. If you can align that all, you're going to have a great national security career. You're going to have a great career in general. I do consulting now. I get out and about, and I also here in my office doing these things. I can be home for dinner time with my young family. So I want to thank, we're at 1. I want to thank everybody for their time. I want to thank those for their questions. We're going to do this quarterly. Submit questions in advance. Check out the website, kirschgroup.ca, for the next time. If you have any other questions, you can email us, info@kirschgroup.ca. If you need security consulting advice and support, we're also here to help. We run a consulting business, threat risk assessments, bug sweeps, investigations, due diligence. For some of the services we offer, check them out online. And thank you so much for coming out. We'll speak soon. Until then, stay safe, everyone. Thanks so much.